I'll be honest with you guys, I've got Freqtube and I was very skeptical. I was wondering if just one tube processor could actually change anything. Just have a look at my computer screen. During last 20 years I acquired more than 1,000 different plugins, and at first I tried to convince myself that I will definitely find some that will allow me to achieve a similar warm sound, but actually every time this little guy with this plugin sounded just a little bit better, fuller, warmer, just more pleasant to the ear, and there's really no alternative. At least I don't have it now in a plugin domain. So I recorded all those comparisons and I will show it to you in a minute, but I'll start with some professional mixes and let me just tell you how it all works. So Freqtube is a hardware tube processor. It uses USB-C for audio transfer, so there are some AD and DA converters here, totally transparent, 32-bit resolution, more details in a moment. And actually it requires also mains power, but I didn't expect it to be different. Overall there are, real tubes inside. So all you need to do is to install some drivers and a plugin, and then you just run a plugin in your DAW, and each plugin can operate on 1 or 2 tubes at a time. The front panel offers 8 potentiometers, and they can be freely assigned to different functions of the unit of the plugin, depending on how many instances you're using. By default, one instance in stereo uses 4 potentiometers, and you can set the color for each instance, which actually is pretty nice when working with different tracks, and you can see the track name here. And of course, the potentiometers, they're not endless, so if the value on your computer is different, then you will see the gray color here, and then you have to pick up the value, and once you pick up, then you can use the potentiometer, and of course you can record the automation, so it all works pretty flawlessly. Of course, the most obvious use case would be mastering and warming things and enhancing things and adding this top-end shizzle, and I just did that with Depot Flame track from Tomasz Pawłowski, a Polish artist, Polish producer. Absolutely beautiful thing. Let me show you my mastering tray now. So I've got different things here. I've got BX for some low bass warming, also PSP Noble Kegs, which is Pultec emulation, beautiful. Then I've got 2 instances of Freqtube. As you can see, I'll talk about them in a second. And also I decided to use the PSP stereo controller for some low-end and mid-range corrections, and then I just got new PSP Flare as a master limiter, and this is just it. And now I will show you before and after. So what is the impact of Freqtube on this master? Let me demonstrate it to you. I will toggle bypass switch as usual. I guess it's quite amazing. The sound is actually much more musical, smooth, and just pleasing. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I also did a comparison with Ozone, which came out pretty flat. Let me show it to you. So this version is much warmer and I just love it. So I'm going to present to you one of the tracks from Sebastian Weikum, my former student. The track is called New Day, and it is a wonderful, wonderful deep track. And he sent me both original stems, which I just stamped and limited here, but also original master that has been prepared in a big professional studio using analog gear. So I will compare this original master with the master prepared with Freqtube. So I process just a little bit some of the stems, and then I put two instances on Freqtube on the track. So I'll start with unprocessed stems, and then I will compare the original analog master with my master with Freqtube.
Don't be sad, don't you cry, just let go of your pain. Don't be sad, don't you cry, just let go of your pain. Don't be sad, don't you cry, just let go of your pain. Don't be sad, don't you cry, just let go of your pain. Don't be sad, don't you cry, just let go of your pain. Don't be sad, don't you cry, just let go of your pain. Don't be sad, don't you cry, just let go of your pain. Don't be sad, don't you cry, just let go of your pain. Don't be sad, don't you cry, just let go of your pain. Don't be sad, don't you cry, just let go of your pain. Don't be sad, don't you cry, just let go of your pain.
Sorry for the interruption. I just realized I forgot to ask you to subscribe to my channel. So please do. If you like what I'm doing, I'm pretty sure I'm going to do some more amazing stuff pretty soon. So just be around. Freqtube lets us assign 4 tubes between different tracks. And one scenario I find pretty useful in electronic clap music is saturating the kick and bass, and also some drum bass processing or master processing. Let me introduce you to this example here. I will bypass all plugins now and let's listen. So let's start with the kick. I will toggle the bypass switch here, and also I will show you the sound in the wet mode and with the different drive settings. Here I decided to go with the plus 18 dB settings. and now wet. But I could also, use less drive and more harmonics here. And the original settings. I used similar settings on bass. So in this example I went for mild subtle settings, but I could also go wild and increase the drive in the wet mode. And now with the filter. So the beautiful thing about it is that there are lots of colors, lots of saturation types you can achieve, and it never sounds harsh. And there's also some brightening on the master channel, so the filter restricts the saturation to the higher bands, and also there's just a hint of it in the dry wet mode, so it's a parallel processing actually. So let me show before and after. I will toggle the bypass switch. So it's a beautiful, subtle, and, well, not so subtle actually, enhancement and saturation in the high end that actually sounds pretty smooth. I mixed this track for one of my students, but unfortunately I cannot reveal the title because it won't be released just yet. I mentioned at the beginning that at first I tried to find a plugin that could actually do what Freqtube does, and the only one that came close was PSP Saturator. Let's listen to the raw sound, then to the Freqtube sound, then to the raw sound, and then to the PSP Saturator. And now I will toggle between Freqtube and PSP. I guess in this example PSP sounds similar to Freqtube and vice versa. However, Freqtube tends to preserve transients better. It has more punch, and if you drive it harder, it actually preserves the dynamic much better. And other plugins, including PSP, they tend to compress the sound and muffle just a little bit. And then I try to process bass. And in this example, you should definitely hear that the Freqtube sound is much warmer and fuller at the same peak and RMS level. So I guess warming up the low end and also making silky high end is actually not yet possible in the plugin domain yet. However, if you're into more distortion area and you like heavily saturated sound, you can get pretty close with some plugins. I actually spent, I think, an hour, yeah, it was crazy, to match the sound of Freqtube with Isotope Trash. And you'll hear that in a minute. If you're not interested, just skip a minute. So I guess the biggest takeout is that this little device can actually make your mixes, your master sound analog-like. So usually you can make it sound very, very similar to the analog masters made using much more expensive analog gear or more pieces of that analog gear. So it really delivers on the promise of making the sound warm and smooth and pleasing to ear. So this could be a missing ingredient. If you're working mostly in the box, this is like a perfect solution. And then even if you like to buy some more analog gear, you still can. This flawlessly works as a plugin, so I think it's a bargain really. For that sound, for these possibilities you cannot achieve with plugins, this is a bargain. Okay, I've got some pros and cons, so let me read it quickly for you. So there's pros. There's a beautiful tube saturation that warms the low end and mid-range, and I find it impossible to achieve with any of my 1000 plugins. There's a very wide range of applications, from subtle tube mastering to ear-pleasing brightening, warming up bass regions, bringing vocals to life, drum bass compression, parallel saturation, compression, adding harmonics to kick and bass, tube saturation, and many more. There's a convenient operation via USB connection. You don't need any cables, you don't need to buy a new interface with more inputs and outputs or an added extension, etc. For the processor itself is a hardware processor, but it's operated like a plugin, so it's really easy to use. 5, it is possible to use 4 tubes in various configurations. So you can have 2 stereo, processors, or you can have 4 mono. If you like, there is a transparent conversion around 120 decibels of dynamics and a very low noise level. The results are repeatable, so every time you load a session and you've got a bounce track at the live session, and your bounce track will sound the same. I've tested it and it's repeatable. The processor can be operated using potentiometers, but actually it can be put out of sight somewhere else, so it's pretty convenient. It's easy to start, it's ultra stable, and I have never encountered any problem. During the month time period, it works flawlessly. The lamps look nice, and I heard that you can connect more than 1 device, but actually I think that 4 lamps are just enough to make the mix or master sound pretty analog and smooth. There are some small cons, like precise settings with those potentiometers can be sometimes troublesome. I was struggling, to make 1 decibel less. I will have to, pick up the value and then move it and look at the screen. Well, I don't really need these potentiometers. I usually just use a plugin. And with very strong saturation, sometimes you can hear slight differences between left and right channel, but you really have to go to the extremes to get this. And tube lifespan is limited. You have to remember it, so don't make it work through the night. Just if you're not working, just turn it off. But I guess with a few thousand hours of operating time, you've got plenty of time, many years maybe, before you have to exchange the lamps, but tubes that are pretty inexpensive, I guess. So that's it from me. I think it's a great tool, I'm loving it, and I strongly recommend it to you. Your mixes will just sound smoother.